Alex and Danielle here. We are on episode 19 of Rise&Grind podcast, from the playing field to parenthood, and we are coming at you with a week 2 recap / outlook of what's to come. You had a long weekend, Dee.
Yeah, I did.
Just to put it lightly.
Still recovering.
Yeah, hours and hours.
Yeah. I'm just not used to getting up that early.
Yeah.
So like anything in the 4s of where my alarm goes off, it just kind of sets the tone for like after softball, how the rest of the day is going to go. And usually the last 2 years I've done the Clearwater from home, but prior to that, I've always gone in person. I think it's a blessing and a curse. To be there in person is like, whoa, it's so incredible. One of the coolest things is getting to meet a lot of the fans that are going to go watch, because there's so many loyal softball fans that go, and then getting to see all the teams and getting to see a lot of the coaches. Like I know a lot of the like coaches and athletes and stuff. So like getting to be there is one thing. And then there was this also like, okay, I finished up on Sunday and got to go finish the rest of Maddie's basketball tournament. Right. So it's like you have the good and the bad with it. So I feel at least fortunate that we have the opportunity to call some games from home, because we wouldn't be able to do nearly maybe as much if it wasn't for that. So
yeah. And yeah, I can see where like the time difference, obviously, because it's happening in Florida. So you guys having to coordinate and make sure it's all lined up. And we had a couple extra inning games too, right?
Yeah, there was a couple run rule games. Usually you have to check in 3 hours prior to your start time. So that would have been like 3 a.m. for me. And I'm like,
you're basically playing in the game. Yeah, you might as well just go play.
I'm like, if there's any way that we can move it up, give me 90 minutes. It was fun. The preseason stuff gets me like super excited, right? Because teams aren't where they are supposed to be, but it's also you expect a lot out of them, and you're seeing some good matchups that you don't see in conference play that you'd expect in the postseason. So it's like, I know I wrote so many different things down because I think it's good for my broadcaster prep brain to also go through stuff for this podcast, because then it keeps me up with all the different things. But like, I have to open up with like Texas Tech, that game. I know Texas hosted the Bevo tournament and they played. Maryland was there, UMass, and then it was Texas Tech. So it reminded me, and I don't remember if you recall this last year, when Stanford went to Texas to go play in that tournament, and Stanford ended up beating Texas. And it was when Jessica Allister called the replay review on the runner leaving early on second base. And then it just changed the whole dynamic of the game. And then that's when that happened a lot last year, where coaches started doing that replay review. So the fact that Nyjah got to go back to that tournament, Texas to me is so sound. Like they really are
the whole package.
The whole package. Like the other games, Maryland twice, UMass fine. But when they played Texas Tech game 1, everyone was watching that game. Like that was a 9-inning, 2-hour, 51-minute game. Absolute pitcher's duel. Tegan Cavan set a record, 18 strikeouts she had in 9 innings. Like incredible. Nyjah, listen, I do think it was a little bit harder of an offense to go up against for Nyjah. And I'm not saying I don't think Texas Tech can swing it, because they do, but Texas' lineup can swing it, right? So when I think and look at like 8 innings pitched for Nyjah, giving up the 7 hits, 11 strikeouts, like she did everything that she could. You know, she got to hit, she got to see what it's like to go up against one of the absolute greats in Tegan Cavan, and struggled a little bit too offensively.
Right.
And then it was the bounce back for Texas again to go up against Texas Tech. Cavan started that game, same thing, threw well, gave up 0 runs, 5 Ks. Stewart, Reese Atwood, couple home runs. Like, I don't know. I just think that Texas is probably that front runner team right now, and I think they'll be number 1 in the poll, the poll that comes out tomorrow. And I don't know. I think that the experience they got last year was invaluable, and those are things that make a big difference if you want to go far. So that weekend was big.
Yeah. They have a lot of the right pieces of the puzzle that are all getting better at the same time. And I think that that's a huge piece of it is like when each of your like key players are all getting better, like
Yeah.
at the same time, it's pretty crazy to watch. But it was a really cool game. And I think overall, like just watching that, it is such a different experience when the pitchers hit. Like just
I love it.
it's such a different look. And there was one of the calls where somebody got called leaving early from first again in that game, I think.
Yeah.
On Texas Tech. I think it was Texas Tech that left early. And it was late in the game. But when you think about the strikeouts, right? 18 strikeouts in a game. You have 3 outs an inning. That's 6 innings out of 7 that were strikeouts.
Yeah.
That's like top tier performance that we're talking about here. Obviously, they pitched more than 7 innings, but it just like when you put it in that kind of a perspective is like these pitchers are. I mean, Kavan we saw her do it last year, but to see her do it again in such like a statement game, I think was huge for them this early on.
Especially her being a sophomore too, it makes a really big difference. And also like Nyjah to me is one of the best that I've ever seen with the way that her ball moves. And I'm not going to say that I put Tegan Kavan in that exact same category of elite. Mm-hmm. I think she has this in-game ability to be able to beat hitters, which is a skill set. I can appreciate that. Nyjah's stuff is like electric. Like it just is the jump on the rise ball and the move on some of the pitches. But you just don't see as many hardcore pitchers duels anymore, right? So like that's why it's like so fun, and I appreciate that part of the game because that was like a time when like you and I played where there was those just tit for tat. Whoever makes the first mistake as a pitcher gives up the big hit or the big bomb or so many things. Who makes the first mistake on defense? Like that's always what it comes down to, and that's kind of like what the postseason is like. But I love those pitchers duels. I'm all about it. I'm all about it.
Yeah, it's more. I feel like you're more invested because you're like rooting for them. Like,
yeah.
Keep it together. Don't pitch it bad. Let's see. So then we went to Florida.
Yeah.
To host the tournament.
Yeah.
And they're now looking at a 13-1 record.
Yeah. They're money. They're good.
Yeah, what do you see out of there that you really like?
I've never seen someone so iconic as Taylor Shoemaker. She's so good right now. She's tied for ribbies and home runs in the nation with 24 ribbies and 8 home runs as a freshman. She's so good. They had Boston College there in Providence, and then they had Duke. And I think, they beat up on Duke pretty good game 1. Right. And Rothrock played or performed well, only had to pitch the 5 innings. They run ruled them. But then it was game 2 that stood out to me the most because that to me is where you see a player for Duke like Cassidy Curd get lit up and then come back and just make so many good adjustments. Like she only pitched 3 innings, gave up 8 hits, 7 earned runs right out of the gate for lefty, the power lefty. She's one of the best left-handed throwers in the game right now for Duke. Experience last year, went to the World Series. So that piece to be able to like have a shit game and then be able to get the ball again and go up against that offense and be able to adjust. Like that next game, she went 7 innings pitched, gave up the 4 hits, only 1 run and struck out 6. And that to me is impressive, right? Like that kind of being that junior vet mentality to be able to adjust. It's hard. Hitters are so good and they have your numbers. So that really stood out to me. Besides Taylor Shoemaker and her 475 average, which is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
I love Duke too. Like I really do. I think them going to the World Series last year was pretty awesome. They got the transfer from UCLA, Tessima Alulu. And then they have some good seniors. They have Drugmuller, who was also good last year, pitched well, Anna Gold, which lots know. And then you have 7 juniors. So they're like a pretty experienced team. Went to the World Series last year.
Yeah.
Because I was shocked when I saw that Florida run ruled Duke. I was like, Duke, wow. And then they came back and did some damage. So that was a fun, like, kind of weekend to tune into when I could outside of the Clearwater tournament. trying to keep tabs, and I go to D1 Softball America, and I'm looking through it, all the scores and doing all the things, but tough to sometimes kind of pay attention to other things. I've been trying my best to pay attention to Oklahoma because, still unbeaten, 10-0. They go to Waco, want to play Baylor, play some other games. They beat Hofstra Baylor twice. I think to me, the one thing that stands out defensively across the board, like they're so good. Only 3 errors on the year. Like defensively, OU is always so damn good.
Yeah, it's near perfect. And that's in the defense. Like, I mean, I think I've said this before, is like our thing on, like, whenever I coach, it was be perfect on defense.
Yeah.
Because the pitchers are going to make mistakes. Shit's going to happen. They're going to hit the ball.
Yeah.
But if you guys can make the routine plays, right? Like muscle memory, like those routine plays, those like way out of the box plays will seem much easier. And you're just lessening the odds that like they're going to get away with something. And it's like people forget about defense. They forget that it's so important. I feel like it was a couple years back, I can't remember which World Series, but there were so many errors. I want to say it was like 4 or 5 years ago. Like across the board, every team was making errors, and these were like routine errors. And that is when it make or breaks your season.
Oh yeah.
So to go the whole season and then have those types of errors in that big stage like that, it's defense cannot be overlooked with how important it will become later down the line.
The game's too fast. You get eat up real quick if you're not on point on defense. So the defensive piece for OU, awesome. Studs still, I mean, I know Ella Parker's young. She's only a sophomore, but I mean, she's hitting 647 for them, 3 home runs, 14 ribbies. She leads them from the top. She does. Sid Sanders, the senior, she's been hitting well, has a couple home runs. Freshman Sydney Barker, 3 home runs, 14 ribbies. And then, I got to give my girl Tia Malloy a shout out. I helped kind of coach her little sister, know their family well. She has 3 home runs for Oklahoma, which is cool to see, and trying to keep tabs on their pitching staff as much. I've been paying more attention to like Sam Landry when she gets to throw, the Louisiana transfer. She's been throwing really well for them. So Oklahoma, as much as everyone's like at times that why are they not ranked first? Like they're the ones that won last year and yada, yada, yada. They lost a lot, man. They lost nine seniors that only knew winning a national championship. These young ladies have to earn their stripes when it comes to that. And they could very well be a team that wins a national championship. If the pieces come together at the right time, that's always what it's about. They have the culture, they have the leadership. It could very easily happen. But there's some other teams that are going to give it a pretty good push too. Maybe I think this is the most open I feel like it's ever been.
The top spot,
So yeah, I'm excited to kind of see how it continues to go for them. So they've been kind of fun to watch.
I think it's smart of them to I think we talked about this with their first weekend where they're kind of easing themselves into it. I think it's really a good strategic move to have them build up that confidence to like show these underclassmen, these newbies that maybe didn't get as much playing time before or aren't as used to that championship mindset, to really like ease them into it, but also build them up. I mean, they're 10-0. So it's like they're doing it, but they're doing it in a way that's a little bit more like I don't want to say like under the radar, but kind of under the radar, right? They're not just coming out and just like trying to do all this crazy stuff. They're really like sticking to what they know and really focusing and perfecting that. So I think it's a really good strategy for them.
Yeah, no, amen. Let's talk some Clearwater teams because there's a lot of teams there. And I covered a good amount of them. One that really just stands out, Auburn to me. They just, with getting the Malvoys, the co-head coaches coming over from Tennessee, we didn't really know. You didn't know what Auburn was going to be like, losing Mickey Dean and, Emily Curasoni. There was a big question mark around Auburn. And right now they're 11-0, and they absolutely hammered some teams. And maybe not the biggest scores, but to me, won some games that maybe people thought, I don't know if they'll win that game.
Yeah.
S.J. Guerin, who transferred over from Oklahoma, she didn't pitch a lot at Oklahoma.
Right.
was huge for them this weekend. And she's someone that hits 59 to 62 miles an hour. And looking at her, I mean, she was 4 wins there, 2 saves through 22 innings, only 2 earned runs, 9 strikeouts. She came into a Liberty game that I was calling and was just absolute nails. And I think, 45 home runs as a team that they had last year. And I actually had Auburn a lot last year. I was a fangirl, and there was times when I was like, man, I think Auburn should be better. With the players that they have, I feel like they should be better. Right. And we had Maddie Penta, who graduated, and Shelby Lowe. But I'm like, with having Nelia Peralta, with having Isis Tresvik, with having Anna Woolers, like KK McCrary, like they had some like girls that put up some good power numbers.
Really good numbers, yeah.
Working, it seemed like. But I mean, they had 45 home runs last year and they're already at 19. So I know the Malvoys are big hitting folk and love that and the philosophy. I can't dive too much into it because I don't know too much about it, and I hope we get the chance to talk to them. But like Tresvik already has 6 home runs on the year and she only had 4 last year. Like they're being able to pick out some cool pieces to these young ladies' games and help sharpen it. So the sky's the limit right now for Auburn because you got nothing to lose. That's what makes it like super fun.
Just going all balls to the wall every time.
Yeah.
But then you see like their counterpart in Bama.
Oof. Bama's struggling. I know. They lost so many games that they were ahead in though, man. I think they were ahead of 3
or 4 of them, wasn't it? Where they were like up ahead and then they
all 4 games they lost in Clearwater, they were ahead. And to me, that's like a
discipline. Yeah.
And like, but they're scoring runs. Like that's the thing. They're putting up good amount of runs. To me, that's a pitching thing. I don't know if it's, if it's a mental shift, like Brisky's good enough to be able to close out ball games. We saw her last year. And she was wonderful. She threw a lot of big pressure moments. They got a transfer, Caitlin Riley from Ole Miss, and she's throwing well for them. She's 3-1, pretty good ERA, 1.89. Brisky 1-4, 26 innings pitched, and her ERA is, I think, almost at a 4. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on there, and I hope that they figure it out. And I mean, last year was the worst that they ever did in the SEC, and then
they did great.
OKC, and then it's just like you can say like, okay, haters, like it doesn't matter how you start. It matters really how you finish. Like I said, it's always our job to talk about it and harp on it because that's where the sport has taken us.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think the concerning part is that you're ahead in all these ball games. And I was just watching the Oklahoma State Bama game actually before this, and it was like bottom of the 7th inning, they gave up a 4 spot.
Yep. Like, it's not just like a 1-run game.
It happened.
Four runs. And that's a tough, because like we don't know, like it would be interesting to figure out like what is the mentality going into those innings that is not working for them. Is it like, we got this, we're just gonna walk off, like it's in the bag? Because to me it was always, this is anybody's game until that final out. Like you cannot give them an inch because they'll take a mile. And what I always loved about Coach Bob was he always talked about how it was softball is a 3-run game. You have to keep your opponent to less than 3 and you have to score more than 3.
I like that.
And almost every time that's not the case, that's where you're going to struggle, right? Like you have to shoot to score more than that, and you have to keep them below 3. And every error results in, you might as well just count a run for the other team.
And
it's like mathematically, in all the years that I've watched it play out, I'm like, wow, this actually does make a lot of sense. Like it actually does work out almost every single time I've seen it happen. So it'd be interesting to find out, like, is it just that they're running out of gas? Are they just running out of gas at the end of the game and they're just not quite still in it? Like, is it physical? Is it mental? Is it, like it's.
I don't know if it's. Brisky's still young. She's only a sophomore.
Right.
I think Caitlin Riley's a junior, maybe a senior. I don't know off the top of my head. I mean, they had Kayla Beaver last year, who was, senior, maybe even a 5th year. I should know off the top of my
I
head.
think she was a fifth year. I think
Like,
that's it.
there's a different experience, even though maybe she took her lumps last year coming into the SEC. There's just this different presence that you are able to bring when you are a vet and you're older and you've gone through a lot because you're older. Like your psyche is just
Yeah.
different. So,
Mhm.
Caitlin Brisky may have to kind of go through the ringer a little bit to figure out what it's like
Yeah.
if you want to be that somewhat solidified ace, and not saying that she has to be that, but you got to step up and you got to be better. You have to realize that when the going gets tough, the pitches that I throw
Yeah.
have to be better. They're not good quality pitches that got hit in big situations. And that's the biggest difference. Like, to be able to execute in some of the biggest moments where the pressure is the thickest, are you able to do it? And that's what makes pitching really hard in this game. Really.
Yeah.
Hitting's very good. Hitting's very good. So many work into deep counts, so many just 8, 9, 10 pitches that you're having to see these pitchers throw, and it just makes it harder. So it's this very strategic game. You got to really cat and mouse it. You have to
Like a battle of wills. Yeah. It's almost like they're just like, who's going to give first? Is it going to be the pitcher that gives it up, or is it going to be the hitter that just can't perform? Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, San Diego State for me is I'm a big fangirl. Not only because I love Stacey Newman, Denise. I know you did the interview with her at the NFCA. Like, she's a real deal, and she just loves the game and loves her team so much. And just, you can tell by the way that she talks about it. And she's like one of my favorite. I would have loved getting to like be around her, play with her. She's special.
Well, Coach, we're gonna come hang out with you again. But yeah, you can tell like they know that she's got their back. And when you have a team that feels that support and that like passion behind them, like from the coach, I think it totally is evident in the way that they're playing. And now they're breaking the top 25. I think they're going to be a really hard team to beat this year.
5-0 in that Clearwater tournament. No one thought San Diego State was going to go into that tournament and go 5-0.
Yeah.
No one. Like, beat Bama, beat Wichita State, beat Missouri, beat Virginia, who had a walk-off win against UCLA.
Yeah.
Beat Charlotte. Like, they pitched really, really well. They got the good transfer. Like, Gracie Uribe was really big for them. She finished up her degree at Texas A&M last year, so did not play softball. She was finishing up, and then ended up being like, hey, I think I want to do it. And what a big pickup for them. Two-way player, very experienced, helps combo the CC Solera, Didi Hernandez mix in the circle. Like, they have such different looks. Yeah, I'm such a San Diego State fan. I had them in regionals last year. I saw what they did 2 years ago when they made it to supers against Utah.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan. So love me a little San Diego State.
You can't talk about them without talking about UCLA.
The Bruins were close to going undefeated. They were close. I had them a game. I'm obsessed with their pitching staff.
Yeah, we talked about them last week. Yep.
Addison Fisher coming in, freshman, number 1 recruit in the nation. Like, I think it was probably a humbling moment for Caitlin Terry to give up that, walk-off win, home run. Like, that, those are daggers. Those are shit that leave you up at night.
Just can't haunt you in the middle of the night.
And the thing was, the young lady that hit it, like, she looked silly in ABs prior off Caitlin Terry. Like, she was swinging and missing at rise balls almost over her head. And then in that moment, it worked. And it wasn't like a horrible pitch either. It's just one of those where, like, dude, I got to tip my cap. I got to tip it because she got a good piece. But that doesn't take away. People are saying UCLA, Palacios, Maya Brady, like, losing big pieces, but you also have a lot of great pieces that are still there that are really with some kick-ass freshmen that are getting the opportunity to play right away, which is always adding more value to a team like UCLA. You don't see freshmen play day to day right away with the portal. So that's kind of their flair. Kelly, in a way, Perez says, like, we give freshmen the opportunity. A lot of it, if you're good enough, you'll play right away. And that's what you're seeing.
That's
but you have,
yeah.
You're having the Megan Grants continue to step up. The Savvy Pola, Seneca Kuro decided to come back for a 6th year who battled injuries. Like, that's experience right there. Maybe the numbers aren't flying off the, radar and where she was over the last couple of years. She had a big home run over the weekend that I remember seeing. So it's just, they have the right pieces. Their pitching staff is awesome. To me, they are a team that will be in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
We're writing it down now. There's number 1.
And then probably a front runner to me that could potentially be up there as a number 1 team in the nation is Florida State. I had Florida State, and I can't say that I've seen anyone swing it the way that they swing it.
Yeah. It's powerful. Like, through the TV, it's powerful. And like, to say that,
yeah,
like, you can feel it when they hit the ball.
They just run ruled the shit out of some teams. They put up so many runs. They did.
I was texting you during the one because I was like, we just talked about this. You touch it, you catch it.
I know. I should have said it on air. I'm sorry. It was still early, I feel like.
No, it was fine. It's just like, you watched that one mistake snowball.
Yeah.
And against a team like Florida State, you cannot give them those opportunities.
No.
If your pitcher does a good enough job to get them to line drive something that you can catch and record as an out, you have to catch it, because then it was just bing, 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 bing. What did they get? Like 4 runs right after that?
Yeah.
So it's tough, man. And the way that they hit, every single out counts against them.
Yeah. They have such good vet presence. My question mark is like, what will the pitching department look like? But sometimes that doesn't seem like it is as important because they can put up so many runs. Yeah. And then when we think about it, I'm like, okay, the best kind of pitchers in the nation. Like, okay, Nyjah, she's not going to give up more than 3-4 runs to a team like that. I just don't think that she would. A Tegan Kavan, like a Jordy Ball, like how would those pitchers do against that type of an offense? Like, Kennedy Harp she's 19 for 27 right now, hitting 704. I was talking to my girlfriend, Kaylee Rafter, who's the assistant at Florida State. And she's just like, she's one of the most like fiery, like her body and how physically strong she is. But like what she's able to do is absolutely incredible. It was just cool to hear her talk about Kennedy. And I mean, but the numbers, like, batting 704, 19 for 27, 3 doubles, 3 triples, 4 homers, 18 ribbies. Like, have a day. She's so good. And I know it's early on and things are going to happen. I mean, numbers are going to work themselves out, and it's a game where it humbles you quickly. But if one does struggle, you have
it's the whole lineup.
It's the whole lineup. And look at, Issa Torres. I mean, 529 she's hitting. You look at Michaela Edenfield, one of the most experienced catchers in our game. Katie Dack finally rolling. The transfer from Auburn. Widra, like, she's 3-0 for them right now with a .42 ERA and 16 innings pitched. That's pretty good. And she didn't pitch a lot at Auburn. She pitched a little. She didn't pitch a lot.
Yeah.
So I think with the help of Lonnie Alameda, that's really going to kind of help
her grow. Yeah.
Because that, to me, like, is really the thing that Widra, Jazzy Francic, I think that's how you say her last name. If not, please don't grill me. And Julia Apsell, the lefty who transferred over. All 3 of those ladies threw really, really well, which to me is a good thing if you're Florida State, right? Like, offensively, let's keep rolling.
I know that's taken care of. It's pitching wise, how we're going to pick it up. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then the Cowgirls.
Yeah. I mean, the record doesn't maybe reflect. I mean, it reflects how hard of a schedule they've gone through. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
There's been
but
some,
the meat of the games that we've watched them play.
Yeah.
The record is not reflective of that. I know exactly what you mean.
Some speed bumps. The walk-off win, Texas A&M. Whoa. I was calling a game, and it was one of the early ones. And all of a sudden it comes up on the TV, and I didn't even notice it because we'll put like different things. So I'll zone out for a commercial break, and then they'll put the highlights of UCLA just did this, and it was Oregon State, because I had it on up here, but I don't pay attention to my main TV when I have my broadcast TV going. And all of a sudden, like after the game, I look back and I'm like, Mark, Oklahoma State won. Like Texas A&M was winning the whole game. He goes, didn't you see the update in our game? And I'm like, oh my God. No, I just get so focused on our game that I can't think of anything else, because sometimes I may say it like thinking
not even on purpose. Yeah.
I'll maybe say something like about that, thinking it's our game. So anyways, that was pretty cool to see for Oklahoma State. And then they had the same thing happen against Bama, where they came from behind in the bottom of the 7th. And you're like, dude, you just have 4 runs. Like that was so cool to like see the excitement. Ruby is throwing pretty good, I would say. Katie Coots, to me, was kind of the MVP of that tournament. Because not only is she a sophomore, she went into some games and stuff last year, but it's usually their like transfers that they really go to. And Riley Crandall didn't even make it through the first inning against UCLA. And Aycock has only thrown 3.2 innings on the year. Like those were pieces that are going to be needed if they want to go far. They got to figure it out.
Yeah. They got to work those in.
Yeah. Like Ruby can't do it by herself. And I think Kenny Gajewski is such a dude's dude where like to him, it's like, oh, F it. Like if you're not going to perform, then like we're going to give this person the chance and we're just going to keep going with it because it's working. And that's what he did with Katie Coots. Like Ruby started against Bama. I think she got pulled in the 5th or maybe the 6th and threw well and runs and some stuff happened. And then he's like, hey, we're going to go with her because she's been throwing well. I don't trust you yet, Crandall, or I don't trust you yet, Aycock, right? Like he just is that type of guy. So the record probably hurts a little bit, but those 2 big come from behind wins, I think, against A&M and
closing out the tournament against that. Yeah. I think it's good for morale. Like that's a high. Anytime you beat Bama is a high, but I'm still writing it from 2010. So yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I had Texas A&M. I had them a couple times. Yeah. I was pleasantly surprised by that team. I think they're one of the best, and I think that they're going to be in Oklahoma City when it's all said and done at the end of this, not only with what they experienced last year with the regional and then getting the super regional and getting a game 3 against Texas, the number 1 seed. Like they're a team that brought back some good experience. They lost some pieces, but they still have an Emily Kennedy who is hungry and ready. And then they got some good transfers and some kids that are really like stepping up and doing well. Like freshman Frankie Vrazel, like she's performing well. You love it when freshmen come in and make an impact. Coach talked about Kramer Eshte in the 9 hole. Like Eshte is literally like a leadoff hitter. She's hitting 455 from the 9 spot. She turns the lineup over. Coco Woolley's up top. Like this is a team that is, because my broadcast partner was asking me like, would you take a Florida State offense or would you take a Texas A&M offense? And I'm like, well, a little bit different. Like Florida State has multiple girls that have a fear factor in the lineup of taking you deep, probably 5 to 6. Texas A&M, maybe 3, right? Like Maya Perez, who hit the home run at the Super Regional last year to tie the game to go to extras in game 2.
Yeah.
Definite fear factor. She hits behind Mac Barbara, and Mac Barbara was a transfer from San Diego State. Was quiet this weekend. You could tell it almost looked like in the last game that I called against Charlotte, like she was pressing a little bit. And she's someone that like sticks to her plan. This is my plan. She writes in her notebook after every at bat, sticks with it, all the things. But you could tell it was money week 1. And then in that Clearwater tournament, they played tough teams. They played Wichita State, UCF, Oklahoma State, Virginia, Charlotte. Like they got pitched a little bit differently than maybe they did week 1. So it'll be interesting to see how she does next weekend. Them going to Florida State, like that's going to be a game that I have like circled through and through all weekend to just kind of watch when they get the opportunity to play. They'll play each other twice. So
especially when it's the 3rd weekend like that.
Yeah,
it just seems like it's starting to be a little bit more decisive. Like you're starting to put things together or not put things together. We're getting closer to conference. Like, it's getting there. Stakes are high.
It's almost March. What? I feel like we got to give LSU some love. I really do. Like sometimes you don't, when you're, at least for me with that Clearwater tournament, you're so caught up in it. And that was kind of our like focus. And sometimes we're not paying attention to all these other games and tournaments.
Yeah.
I mean, LSU's so good. 10-0 on the season. Heavener got another award, Freshman of the Week. It's the second time in a row she's got that.
Yeah.
And they hosted some pretty good teams like Northwestern and Virginia Tech. The Hokies are good. Like Emma Lemley, senior, experienced rise ball pitcher, and they beat them twice. They beat them 7-2 and they beat them 7-4. And
yeah,
I think what I really like about LSU is they have obviously this lefty freshman pitcher who's throwing really well. And then you have Sydney Burzon. You know what you're going to get with Sydney. She's very good. She's one of the probably the top, I'm going to say top 10 pitchers in the country, maybe even go top 5 with her experience, keeping the ball down, all the things. She's very, very good. So I think that combo together could be really dangerous. And then a healthy Danica Coffey, who was out last year. I think if they might have had Danica Coffey at the Supers against Stanford, maybe, because they won game 1 against Stanford. And then you're like, dude, are they really going to do it? Like, is Taylor Pleasance finally going to get to see what Oklahoma City was? And then Nyjah Kennedy was like, hold up, and then just beat them back-to-back games. So healthy Danica Coffey, money. And then Jayla Lassiter, the transfer from Ole Miss. So having Coffey and Lassiter back-to-back is so good. And then their freshman, Tori Edwards, redshirt freshman, like 419, 3 home runs, 4 ribbies, like, and they're playing good teams. So I like where they're headed. I'm really excited to see where they start to go once conference play comes. And every weekend is just that dogfight, and you see what you're made of. It is a whole other beast in the SEC. I used to say that about the Pac-10 when I played, and then the Pac-12, and now the SEC is the big dog.
The whole thing. The whole conference. You don't get a weekend break. You don't get a team where you're like, okay, this is where we can kind of like mix things up and kind of breathe. That doesn't happen in the SEC anymore.
No, it's pretty incredible how good that conference is.
It's evidenced by all the other conferences shifting around.
Yeah, seriously. Liberty was another team that there was a couple games that I feel like they should have won and didn't, but they still were a team to me that is dangerous and a team that I would not, when it comes down to it. And I think about them last year at the Georgia regional, taking Georgia to that final game, the regional final. They were an out away from stamping their ticket to go to a super. And then Georgia came back, and it was the Dallas Goodnight home run, an out away. That stuff is stuff you don't remember or you don't forget. Like, so many things run through my head when I think of stuff like that. So Liberty coach Dot Richardson was like, this is one of the best teams she's ever coached. The experience of these young ladies, they have a healthy Paige Bachman, 6'2" drop ball pitcher. When she's on, she is on. She is a force. She throws hard. She throws true drop spin, and she combos Elena Escobar really well with the good change. But the one game I had them, Wichita State, Liberty, and they went into the 7th inning. They were down 3-2, and they had bases loaded, none out, and they couldn't score. And so, those are, and then the same kind of thing against Auburn. Like, they 2-hit Auburn and lost 2-1. And Auburn was like one of the hottest teams in that tournament. And I'm like, Liberty, your pitching is doing so good, right? Like, they were doing so good. Like, Bachman was just, and then
you got to do something.
So it was just timely hitting, and more importantly, you can't strike out. Like, there was just some things where strikeouts happened, and you're like, that can't happen right now. But don't sleep on Liberty. They're going to be a team that I think, obviously, conference play, they're going to do well, and I think that they're going to be a team that really is dangerous in regional. I want them to pop up. So there's that.
And then Nebraska.
Yeah, I feel like we got to talk about Nebraska. I feel like people need to hear more Jordy Ball, because she's one of my favorites. Yeah, she's, it's cool to see her really getting to be that two-way player. Like her average right now, 5 homers on the year. Like that is so friggin' fun to be a hitting pitcher. There's just nothing like it. And she's a freak athlete. You can just tell she's wiry, the way that her body moves, and like they had 20 home runs over the weekend, Nebraska.
It's wild.
20 home runs over the weekend. Ava Kuzak leads for them, 8 home runs, 19 ribbies. She's been doing well. Jordy Ball threw a no-hitter, 7.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, her first as a Husker. And really, their only 2 blemishes were week 1, right? I know you talked about it last week in the podcast, like with Mississippi State and that big upset. Like that was a big deal. And they gave Nyjah, or they lost to Nyjah when she threw, and Jordy Ball. Or actually, Nyjah did not throw that game. It was someone else.
That was when she didn't throw. But did they go to extras that one?
No, I don't think so.
It might have been a different one. I just love watching Jordy Ball compete. Like it's one of those things that like I think she's good for the sport. Like she's not just good for like Oklahoma when she was there or Nebraska now that she's there. She's one of those players that like girls look up to, and they're like, that's badass.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just it gets you all excited and like pumped up, and like I love a gritty player like that. And I think she really does now that she's getting to do both ways as well. I think it's gonna be Nebraska's gonna have a good season.
It's cool to see Jordy and Nyjah Kennedy both getting a hit.
Yeah.
Right. Like bring that back. Why does that not happen anymore? And like, I swear to God, if I see another like travel ball team that tries to put another pitcher as a PO, pitcher only, like, especially at like 10, 11, 12, are you kidding me? Like, no.
I'll take that away from them that soon.
Don't do it. And you know what? If someone tells you that you shouldn't, continue to keep hitting or go somewhere else, because pitching only at a young age makes that shit feel like life or death.
You need that other piece of it. Like there has to be something that like, I don't know. Obviously I didn't pitch, but I feel like it can be such a good separation for a pitcher. Number one, to like get out of your head.
Yeah.
For an at bat and flip it completely around, but also to contribute, right? Like that's all pitchers want sometimes, is just the opportunity to like fire their team up in a different way. Like maybe they're not pitching the greatest, but like if I can come back and like have a good at bat and get these girls going, like that, I can still contribute in a different way. If all they know is pitching and that goes off the rails a little bit, or something happens and they can't get themselves out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, they're done.
Yeah. And it almost eliminates the thinking and the pressure that you feel as a hitter, because it's way harder as a pitcher. You want to be the one in the moment to hit a home run or have your own back in the circle.
Yeah.
But it is just different. At least for me, it was different. Like I did not feel nearly the same amount of pressure that I felt hitting as I did when I pitched.
Yeah.
I love pressure, but
watching Nyjah strike out against Kavan.
Yeah.
You could feel that. Like, it was just like, she was so frustrated, like reasonably so. Cause even then it's like pitcher against pitcher. There's a lot to be said about what that can do to like build up that mental piece of your game as a pitcher, is to be able to hit and go through those emotions and go through those ups and downs and pressure. I think it really keep your kids hitting. Yeah.
And I mean, shoot, she had a 3-run shot against Jordy Ball week 1, and she had that double. Like those are cool little like moments to remember. I don't know, that I love that. I love Nebraska. I'm excited. I hope I get to maybe call one of their games this year. It would be sick to be able to see them in person. I know Mississippi State, I feel like we got to give them a little bit of love. They're doing well.
Really well.
And, just big wins. I mean, week 1 beating Texas Tech and Nebraska. Like those were like statements. Big transfer, obviously, they have with Raylan Chafin, I think, from LSU, and she's 6-0 on the year. That helps. ERA is good.
I really liked, they posted something on social media over the weekend about the girls that are upperclassmen, maybe juniors or seniors. I can't remember which ones it was, but they were basically like, they were saying that you may not know our names, but we've always been here.
Yeah.
Putting in the work, putting in the reps, getting ready for this. And now we're here and we're ready. Like we've just been waiting kind of behind the lines. And I think that's so powerful because as a team, all you want is them to understand that our best 9 or 10 players are the ones that are going to be on the field. The people right behind them, yes, there should be some kind of pressure, but I think the mistake that coaches make is they make that into like a bad competition rather than my next up, my second string's third baseman. I want her rooting for the third baseman and saying like, hey, you got this, you can do this. And if you can't, I'm ready to step up and help.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's such a different to twist it that way and make it more of like a positive competition. I think I really loved seeing that from them because I think it speaks a lot to the culture on the team and how supportive they are of each other and like they're ready to go. Like this starting 9 that Sam's put together is like, this is our time now.
Well, most transfer if they don't play. You see it happen a lot. There's not a lot of wanting to wait in the wings and say, you go, girl. It just doesn't happen as much. And it takes a good one to do that. So kudos to those on Mississippi State that have been grinding when no one is watching, because when the lights are bright, that's when you rise and you remember the reps and you remember the time that you put in when no one maybe believed that you were the one for the job. So I love that. That is super cool. So, I mean, players doing some big things. Sierra Seiko, she's doing well, has 10 ribbies. Lexi Sosa, they got some girls that are stepping up big. So I love that. And then kind of my last one, Arkansas, I haven't really maybe followed them nearly as much this year. And then all of a sudden there's just a quiet 10-0 and Bree Ellis has 7 home runs and 24 RBIs. And I'm like,
just a cool 10-0 undefeated. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Totally
so
easy.
Just a quick little shout out to Arkansas, and we'll obviously get to see them in SEC play. But those are kind of the teams that I wanted Mizzou to do better this weekend. I felt like they struggled a lot in Clearwater. They had a good actually, I can't remember if they won against UCF or not. I think they ended up having a big win against UCF on Wednesday. Or I could be wrong. I wish that I didn't say that, but I don't know. I just wanted Mizzou to do better, and they struggled in the Clearwater tournament.
They're usually a team that comes out so strong in the beginning. So to see them struggle like that, and I mean, we still have, again, we're saying it's quick, but there's still a lot of games to be played. You've got Mary Nutter this weekend. It's the big tournament in Palm Springs.
Love that tournament.
We got a couple questions from some of our loyal followers. One of which you've kind of touched on, like, in your eyes, what teams have the most depth to make it to the World Women College World Series this season? You've already named off 2 or 3 that you think will be there.
I think Texas and Florida State and Florida right now are front runners for me.
You're for sure.
I would put UCLA maybe at number 4.
Maybe.
I mean, their pitching, I think, is pretty experienced, and I've seen KT step up in some big moments and a healthy Taylor Tinsley. So I kind of feel like those teams stand out to me right now. Texas with what they experienced last year, losing in the national championship. Florida State offensively, probably the best team in the nation. And then, I do like Florida. I like Texas A&M too, but I just need to see a little bit more. A little bit more. It's hard. What it takes to go there is to have more than one pitcher that is capable to throw some big pressure innings, and you got to be able to score a good amount of runs. It's hard to just be able to put up 1 run a game,
I think you could do it with 2 pitchers that can reasonably hold their own on their own an entire game. I think 3. I think when we see 3 rotate out effectively.
Yeah.
I think that's where you start to get to the point where it's like, okay, that's handled. The offense has to produce. I agree with your choices. I think I would call Nebraska just because I think she's kind of got something to prove again. I think she's in her home state. You know, you go to Oklahoma 2 years, you win it twice, and then you come back you get injured. So it's like first year back, I think she's just gonna go balls to the wall.
No pun
intended.
Jigs. But I do got to put Nyjah in that category too.
Yeah. Those are big transfers that like it's just it's there. Like you know that it's like deep in like inside of them. They want this more than anything.
And Nyjah last year, getting them as far as she did with maybe they're hitting, not having a lot of fear in the lineup. There's no fear in that lineup for me. Like they could manufacture some runs, but there was no effort doing that. Imagine Nyjah on Florida State or on like you think of like those types of things, right? Like if you put her on a team that like no doubt is putting up that amount of like home runs, they average 10 runs a game in Clearwater, Florida State. Like what? Yeah. So I'm with you. Jordy Ball, never count her out. And then I got to put that up with Nyjah because I think Nyjah is the best pitcher in the country. And I think Nyjah is one of the best pitchers that I have seen in the last 10 years. So if you can combo that with an offense that can maybe really start to figure out how to.
And a defense to stop making errors.
Yeah. Defense we'll probably say that before anything else. Yeah. So this is a beauty. But this is what makes our sport really fun, though, because I do think that it's the most open that it's ever been because it's just felt like it's Oklahoma's.
There's so many teams, so like they're all good.
And maybe Oklahoma is still that team that is going to win it for the 5th year in a row.
Yeah. And
if so, it would be pretty cool because they lost a lot, which means they have the right pieces to teach these young bucks how to get it done.
Right.
But to me, they're not there yet, and they have a lot of time to get there. This is only Daniel's opinion. But I'm intrigued to see if they can. So yeah. And what's the next question?
It was, do you think it is more of a hitter's game these days with such high scoring games? We talked about this a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it's not pitchers duels anymore. Like that's why it was such a big deal that we do see them sometimes. I think the technology and the coverage has not hurt pitchers, but it's made it easier to pick them up and figure out their strategy and figure out their tells and
get it. You can say it's hurt it.
Yeah, it's when a pitcher can be as dominant as Nyjah, as Kavan, and really keep people down. They're doing something else. It's not just their pitchers. It's that game time mentality. It's that tenacity. It's the grit, whatever you want to call it. It's a hitter's game. Yeah. There's so much. I mean, if we had the type of technology that they have now, like our swings, how much better would your swing have been? Like there's so many other things that they use now, right? That like they're working on things in a different way than just a coach watching you and saying, hey, you're dropping your hands. Like it's, your bat angle is just slightly dropping below 15 degrees. Like it's just all it's analyzing it in a completely different way. So I think it's a hitter's game now. And I think the pitchers, it's not about how many runs they're going to score. It's keeping them to a level where your offense can score more.
I mean, you're getting to face a pitching machine that can replicate every pitcher in the game. So back in the day when you'd have to get a BP thrower in or one of the male guys to come in and throw 70 plus, now you have a pitching machine that can spin it up, spin it down, throw you change up. Like, so you're getting reps on reps on reps. And back in the day, you just weren't getting it to that extent. So that with the combo of analytics of swings and paths and all the things. So yeah, hopefully those answer your questions. It's fun to do this and think about like the softball piece, because every week it's just getting a little bit different. You're starting to see some teams rise. You're starting to see some teams maybe drop some games that shouldn't. So yeah, I'm excited to see where the season goes.
I know. And you're getting ready. Has Maddie, is she like games now? Do they take?
We have games next weekend. And then I want to say in March, bless you, I have a couple weekends in March where I'll be doing some games. And then I'm every weekend, April through
The end.
And yeah, through the end, it starts to get really busy. So March is a little lighter. And tournaments start to amp it up a little bit. And then April, yeah, we're go. So
yeah,
let's go.
It's fun. Springtime.
I know.
It's madness.
Yeah.
I had to go buy cleats. That's always fun.
Cleats. Okay. Well, I know it's late your time. Thanks for making this work.
Yeah, always. We appreciate you guys listening in, and we will catch you next week.
Yeah.
I think we should do another Q&A.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, I think it'll be good. But tune in this weekend, all the games, keep watching, keep up those viewerships like we've said before. It helps the sport. That's all we want. So let us know if you guys have questions, comments, follow along, and we'll talk to you next week.
Peace out.